This is the 2025 CF Moto 450 SR. So, the CF Moto 450 SR. It's an interesting bike. This is the first bike that CF Moto brought out that really got people's attention. It's a 450cc parallel twin, and it looks the way it does. I mean, it looks really cool. You can't deny that it's a cool looking bike. It's got all the electronics you could ever want on such a small bike. It's got traction control, it's got Bluetooth to your phone, to your Cardo or your headset, all sorts of stuff like that. It can tell you about your maps. There's an app that you can get, so it can tell you if the bike's being moved. It's got built-in GPS tracking in it. I mean, you can even use the app to figure out how much fuel you have left in the bike. That's crazy to me. Now look, I might sound like a bit of an old cunt, but when I started riding, I would have killed for a bike like this. And the fact that it's cheaper than a lot of its competitors as well. I mean, you look at the Ninja 400, yeah, sure, that's a really great platform that you modify and then it makes it good. But it doesn't have anything this bike has. This has all of the features that you would expect. I mean, you can go buy a quick shifter for this. You can get the SRS model, which has a single-sided swing arm, midship exhaust, all that sort of stuff. It looks way better. It's really hard to go past the price point. But a lot of people still remember the kind of bikes CF Moto were making not even 10 years ago. Which, I mean, let's be honest, they were shit. But if you're on the market for a new bike and you're looking for something that's going to carry you through your lambs period, CF Moto still does have a little bit of a question there about its reliability. It's definitely not as clean a track record as, say, Kawasaki or Yamaha. Definitely not Yamaha. The thing that CF Moto does, and they do this really well, is they dress up their mediocre bikes with superbike equipment. For example, all of the electronics I talked about, a massive TFT color screen. You know, I mean, it's got bigger Brembos than my head, which is huge for a learner bike. I mean, of all of the 400 class bikes, this has got to have the biggest braking system. They disguise their axial master cylinder as a radial because it's got a remote reservoir. That's the type of stuff that superbikes had in the early 2000s, the old R1s. They have axial master cylinders, but remote reservoirs. It makes it look like a radial master cylinder, even though it isn't. And CF Moto's using the same tricks they used back then to make their bikes look so interesting and so cool. This review's been a long time coming. I've wanted to have a go on one of these bikes for quite a while now. I've finally gotten my hands on it, thanks to Brad, and also thanks to Team Moto Dandenong for the hookups. Now, this is one of the most popular learner bikes you can get, the 450 SR, probably in part because it is actually a 450 instead of a 400 or a 300. Even though Kawasaki has the Ninja 500 now, the 450 SR is still super popular. Still not as popular as the ever ubiquitous Ninja series of bike, the 3, 4 and 500 now, but it is still a very popular bike. I've seen lots of them around, and it is actually a pretty good choice for a first bike. Let me tell you why. So there's a couple things about this bike that you don't seem to get on its competitors, and they are sort of wank factor stuff that CF Moto has put on their bike to make it more appealing and sell better, but they are actually things that matter, and I'll go through them now with you. So first, although mostly cosmetic, these levers here, they're like that polycarbonate sort of plasticky material you get on new BMWs and all that sort of stuff. That's a really nice touch. They definitely aren't any more durable than the aluminium ones, but they do save a little bit of weight, and just like a stingy bastard on a night out, you are definitely going to be trying to save as many grams as possible on a small bike like this, if you want to go fast anyway. Something else I really like is this full color TFT screen. It's huge and it's bright as. I can have this in direct sunlight and still see it perfectly clearly. All the information that's important is right there. Plus, It's actually got a full like infotainment system on it. You can control your music, you can control your Cardo or Bluetooth communicator through this thing. It's got maps, it's got all that sort of stuff. The traction control is easy to find and turn off. I wish it had a magic button. It doesn't. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to go through the menu and turn off if you want to do some monos and all that sort of stuff. The ABS I don't think is switchable though. One of the things I like the most about this bike is this massive radial mounted Brembo caliper. That thing is huge. It outclasses this bike by a fair bit, that caliper. No, it doesn't have twin rotors. Yes, it would be cool if it did, but it'd be more expensive if it did. But that's great. As I said before, it doesn't have a radial master cylinder. It does have an axial master cylinder, which does limit the performance a little bit, but not in any sort of feasible way for road bike riding. If you were tracking this, I would probably recommend getting a different master cylinder just for better feel and all that sort of stuff. And for those that don't know, axial means it goes in the same direction as the axles in the wheels, and radial means it goes in the same direction that the wheels rotate. Cosmetically, it's a really good looking bike. It does have big wings on it. Being a 450, the wings are kind of useless, but you know, a lot of people like wings. Wings are in at the moment, so that is kind of popular. But generally speaking, it's a good looking bike. I love the daytime running lights inside the headlight. Just there, they have a cool little sequence when they start up, which is cool. The styling's good. I love the integrated turn signal mirrors and all that sort of stuff. So like, as far as a really handsome looking first bike, this is fantastic. This will scare the shit out of your mum when you come home. It looks fast as fuck. Now, speaking of performance, they do have to save money somewhere to make this bike $1,000 cheaper than the competition. And genuinely, I think that is in the tires and the suspension. The suspension's really not great on this bike. I am a bit heavier. So if I was the 75 kilos that these bikes are set up for, it might feel a little bit better. But there's heaps of travel in the fork, and it sort of feels really floaty. I'm not really in touch with the wheels. I'm not really feeling very good communication between the road and the handlebars, which good suspension does fix, and good suspension does matter for that. For your first bike, for just riding on the street and for just going on your casual twisties run with your mates, it's fine. You're not going to have any issues with it. But if you are serious about racing this in the classes, like a 450 class or, you know, bracket racing or anything like that, suspension is probably going to be your #1 expense alongside some good tires. These actually grip better than I thought they were going to. I was a bit sus on them, these CST radials here. I was a bit sus on them being Chinese tires and all that sort of stuff. I thought, oh, here we go, it's just another Shinko. But to be honest, I haven't had any issues with it today riding through the hills. I haven't pushed it super hard because it is a brand new bike, and it's not mine, obviously. So I haven't really been trying to like scrape the peg feelers or any of that sort of stuff and get right to the edge of the tire. But what I have done on the bike today, these tires have held up pretty good. Personally, #1 thing I'd do if I bought one of these would be to get a nice set of Pirellis or, you know, Metzlers or something like that. So the last thing I'm going to talk about are the ergonomics of the bike. It looks like a super sport, but it is still quite upright. It is still a sport touring seating position, especially coming from the R7, which is quite an aggressive seating position, and then going to this, immediately noticed, oh yeah, I'm quite upright. The pegs are very close to me, handlebars are very high up, and I'm not very hunched over, not in that super sport position. Still plenty of room to move and get under the bar though, if you're going to do some high speed riding through the corners and stuff like that. If you really want to grab on and get really low under the bike, you can do that. There's room for that there. So to do like intermediate level track days and all that sort of stuff, you won't need to change the handlebars or anything like that. To do your twisties runs, it's fine. You can still hammer this thing through the hills. It turns on a dime because it's lightweight and it has skinny wheels, but it doesn't destabilize from that. The suspension does take away a little bit from that handling. As I said before, it's quite spongy. The rear's not too bad, but the forks especially. But the seating position is pretty good for that. While riding it, I didn't notice any unnecessary buzzing or anything like that. It actually feels pretty good. All right, so the 450 SR, what do I reckon? I reckon it's actually a really good bike. I think this is a massive turning point for CF Moto. And it probably was the same when this bike came out. But a parallel twin with a cross-plane crank, lightweight, sport bike orientation. It's a massive step above the bikes they were making 10 years ago, and that is so evident in all of the things about it. And that actually makes me excited for the 675. It makes me excited for the 1000 they're bringing out and all that sort of stuff. It really actually makes me very excited to test ride the MT 450, the adventure bike. I really want to have a go on one of those, so hit me up if you've got one. But this is a really good bike. I'm pleasantly surprised. I genuinely didn't expect to be this impressed with a CF Moto in general, let alone a little 450 like this. Would I buy this bike? I don't know. If I was buying brand new, I'd probably still get the KTM RC390. I still think that is the cream of the crop of small capacity sport bikes. But it's really hard to argue with the fact that the parts for this are so cheap and the bike itself is a whole grand less. You know, that whole $1,000 difference there, you could easily get yourself some nice tires and a little bit of bling here and there, or maybe some extra stuff if you were starting out and you wanted to get a nicer helmet and all that sort of thing. But yeah, look, I'd probably still get the RC390. This is coming in at a pretty close second though. I don't think I've ridden another 450, 300-ish bike that appeals to me as well as this one. So props to CF Moto for that one. All right, that's going to do it for the video today, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Leave a comment below of the next bike you'd like me to review, or if you have one you want me to have a go on and you're in Melbourne, hit me up on Instagram or here on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. I'll see you in the next one.